When Quinshon Judkins stepped to the mic, what stood out wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't have to. His body language, the controlled tone, the forced professionalism, it all screamed one thing: this is taking a toll. Playing behind linemen who barely engage defenders, who trip over their own feet, isn't just frustrating, it's demoralizing. For Judkins and Shedeur Sanders, this isn't football anymore. It's crisis management. And the weight of constantly covering for others' failures is starting to show in more than stats. It's showing in their confidence, their body language, and their tone. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. This is what happens when coaching neglect meets collapsing team culture. The Browns have a decision to make: protect their young players now or watch them break down under the pressure of carrying a failing institution. This isn't just about sacks or missed blocks. It's about long-term damage to mental toughness, belief, and player development. If leadership waits any longer, there might not be anything left to salvage. Quinshon Judkins didn't come into the league asking for sympathy. He showed up ready to work, ready to run, and ready to earn everything the hard way. And when you listen closely to what he's been saying, not loudly, not recklessly, but carefully and professionally, you hear a player who knows exactly what's going wrong. He's not calling anyone out by name, but he's making one thing clear: the job in front of him has been made harder than it ever should be. When Judkins talks about tripping over grass, blocking air, and defenders running free, he's not exaggerating. He's describing an offense where the most basic responsibility up front isn't being handled. Running lanes collapse before they even exist. Plays die before they start. And instead of focusing on vision, timing, and power, Judkins is forced into survival mode. That's not football. That's damage control. What makes it worse is that Judkins keeps doing everything right. He shows effort. He shows discipline. He shows patience. And yet, week after week, the same problems show up. The same misassignments. The same blown blocks. The same breakdowns that turn routine plays into disasters. At some point, effort from the skilled players stops being enough when the foundation underneath them is. Shedeur Sanders is dealing with the same reality, just from a different angle. As a quarterback, he's expected to read defenses, manage pressure, and deliver the ball on time. But that entire process depends on trust. Trust that the pocket will hold. Trust that protection will be there long enough for a play to develop. And right now, that trust doesn't exist. Sanders is facing pressure almost immediately. Defensive linemen aren't being slowed down, redirected, or engaged. They're getting clean paths. That forces rush decisions, broken mechanics, and constant hits. And when that keeps happening, it doesn't just affect stats. It affects confidence. It affects development. It rewires how a young quarterback sees the field. This isn't about Sanders being unable to handle adversity. It's about being put in situations where success becomes unrealistic. You can only ask a quarterback to escape so many free rushers before the system itself becomes a problem. When every snap feels like a scrambled drill, growth stalls. And that's exactly what's happening here. What ties Judkins and Sanders together is that neither of them is failing individually. The failures are happening before they even touch the ball. The offensive line isn't just struggling. It's breaking down at a fundamental level. Missed blocks, no engagement, confusion, and sometimes it looks like defenders are being politely escorted into the backfield. That kind of dysfunction doesn't happen in isolation. It's not one bad game or one unlucky matchup. It's systemic. It shows up repeatedly, across games, across situations, and across different play calls. When the same issues keep appearing, the problem isn't execution alone. It's preparation, accountability, and oversight. The result is an offense that can't establish rhythm. Running plays get stuffed immediately. Passing plays collapse before reads are finished. And the burden falls unfairly on players who are doing everything they can just to keep plays alive. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair to the talent on the field. This is where the spotlight shifts upward, because problems like this don't exist without leadership allowing them to linger. Kevin Stefanski has had time. He's had film. He's had repeated evidence that the offensive line issues aren't fixing themselves. And yet, the same breakdowns keep happening. Delayed adjustments matter. When coaches hesitate to make changes, players pay the price. Instead of addressing the core issues, the response has often been shuffling pieces, changing looks, or hoping things improve naturally. But hope isn't a strategy. And when weeks go by without meaningful improvement, that becomes negligence. The cost of that delay is visible. Judkins misses opportunities. Sanders absorbs hits. Confidence erodes. And the message sent to the locker room is that accountability is optional. That's how losing cultures form. Not from one bad season, but from repeated tolerance of dysfunction. Losing doesn't just show up on the scoreboard. It settles into habits. Players start pressing. Mistakes multiply. And when the same problems aren't corrected, frustration turns into resignation. That's dangerous, especially for young players who are still forming their professional identities. Judkins and Sanders are learning lessons right now, whether the organization intends it or not. They're learning what happens when systems fail to protect them. They're learning how quickly effort can be wasted. And over time, that wears on players mentally as much as it does physically. The longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to reverse. Confidence isn't a switch you flip. Development isn't something you can pause and restart. Every bad rep counts. Every unnecessary hit matters. And every missed opportunity leaves a mark. When Sanders speaks, he stays composed. He doesn't deflect blame recklessly. But you can hear the strain beneath the professionalism. He knows what's happening. He feels it every snap. And he understands that his struggles are being judged without context. Quarterbacks are always the first to be blamed. But film tells a different story here. It shows immediate pressure. It shows unblocked defenders. It shows plays that never had a chance. And when those conditions persist, the evaluation becomes unfair. Sanders isn't being given a stable environment to grow. He's being asked to adapt to chaos. That's not development. That's damage limitation. And if it continues, it risks shaping his career in ways that have nothing to do with his ability. Accountability starts at the top. Coaches set standards. They decide what's acceptable and what isn't. And when basic execution failures keep happening, the responsibility doesn't stop with the players on the field. Stefanski's reluctance to make decisive changes has allowed these problems to fester. Whether personnel decisions, coaching adjustments, or schematic fixes, waiting too long sends a wrong message. It tells everyone involved that the current state is tolerable. At some point, leadership has to step in and draw a line. Protecting players isn't optional. Fixing foundational issues isn't optional. And when that doesn't happen, the consequences ripple through the entire organization. If nothing changes, this won't just cost a season. It will cost development years. It will cost trust. And it will cost the Browns a chance to build around young talent that's already being pushed to the edge by circumstances they can't control. Judkins and Sanders deserve better than this. They deserve structure. They deserve protection. And they deserve leadership willing to act before more damage is done. Because once confidence is broken, rebuilding it takes far more than a coaching adjustment. If you're watching this and feeling frustrated, you're not alone. This situation didn't happen overnight, and it won't fix itself without real accountability. Let me know what you think about how this has been handled, whether changes should come at the coaching level, and how the Browns can realistically protect their future. Make sure to like the video if this breakdown resonated with you. Share it with other Browns fans. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more honest conversations about what's really happening on the field. There's a difference between a bad game and a broken system. And for the Browns, this is past the point of being about a couple of misplays or unlucky matchups. The offensive breakdowns are happening across the board, week after week, no matter the opponent. This isn't circumstantial. It's structural. Opposing defenses aren't just beating the Browns up front. They're exposing them. They're walking into the backfield like they have an invitation. And the Browns keep rolling out the same looks, expecting something to change. At some point, it stops being stubbornness and starts being delusion. Fans can see it. Analysts can see it. And the players feel it. That kind of consistency in failure doesn't go unnoticed. It sends a message loud and clear that the issues everyone's talking about aren't being fixed internally. And that silence from the top, that's louder than any postgame. Kevin Stefanski had an opportunity to stop the bleeding. Multiple opportunities, actually. He could have made changes on the line. He could have restructured the protection schemes. He could have held position coaches accountable for repeated errors. But instead, week after week, it was more the same. This isn't about scapegoating one coach. It's about responsibility. Head coaches are responsible for what they allow. And when they allow their offensive line to operate like turnstiles, they're complicit in the outcome. Every sack Sanders takes. Every stuff run for Judkins. That lands on Stefanski's plate now. By the time he acknowledged the issue publicly, the damage was already baked in. The rhythm of the season was lost. The confidence of the offense was shaken. And the trust that young players need to grow, that was already cracked. Reacting late is better than never, but not by much when you're coaching at this level. Go back to the Titans game and count the hits. Shedeur Sanders was under duress from the opening drive. The Titans didn't need to disguise anything exotic. They just sent pressure and let the Browns' offensive line fail to respond. It wasn't about defensive genius. It was about knowing the Browns wouldn't adjust. Even on short yardage plays, protection collapsed. Sanders was forced to rush throws, make awkward decisions, and improvise on nearly every snap. And when you're playing quarterback like you're running a live drill, development goes out the window. The only focus becomes survival. That game was supposed to be a moment for progress. But instead, it became another data point in a season full of missed chances. Sanders isn't getting better because he isn't being given the space to improve. And that isn't on him. That's on the system around him refusing to. For Judkins, it's death by 1,000 cuts. You can see it in his body language. He lines up with purpose. He hits the hole hard, or at least where the hole should be, but he's running into walls. Not defenders, his own linemen. Confusion, clutter, chaos. He's not calling anyone out, but he doesn't have to. His comments about guys tripping over grass or blocking ghosts speak volumes. That's not venting. That's observation. He's describing exactly what's going wrong without needing to spell it out. And that's a level of maturity you don't often see in young players. Still, it's a waste. You got a player ready to explode statistically, capable of breaking off chunk plays and grinding out tough yards. And the infrastructure around him is broken. His numbers suffer, his morale dips, and his development slows. All because the basics aren't being done up front. Every time Stefanski takes the podium, there's an opportunity to shift the narrative, to show he's listening, to show he's willing to hold people accountable. But his pressers have been vague, repetitive, and noncommittal. Phrases like, "we'll look at the tape," or "gotta be better," have become white noise. That's not leadership, it's deflection. And while it might buy time in the media cycle, it doesn't fool the locker room. Players know when coaches are avoiding hard truths. They see who's being held responsible and who isn't. And when the same mistakes happen without consequence, morale tanks. Fans aren't asking for miracles. They're asking for honesty. They want to know there's a plan, that there's urgency, that someone sees what they're seeing. But instead, the tone remains passive, as if these are isolated glitches instead of chronic problems with the offense's design and discipline. And this isn't just about Judkins or Sanders. This is about a team-wide culture that's been allowed to rot. Players are losing confidence. Fans are losing patience. And the organization risks losing its young core if changes aren't made fast enough. This isn't a normal rebuild cycle. It's not year one of a 5-year plan. This is supposed to be the season where things come together. Instead, it's unraveling in real time. And the fact that the coaching staff can't or won't course correct makes it all the more frustrating. Games are being lost before halftime. Not because the players aren't trying, but because the plans are flawed, the execution is undisciplined, and the accountability is nowhere to be found. That kind of environment can't produce winning football, no matter how talented your roster is. There was optimism. Sanders looked sharp in post-game interviews. He spoke like someone who believed in the system, who trusted the coaches, who felt like this team was building towards something real. But that confidence has been tested hard. After weeks of getting hit, second-guessing reads, and watching plays die before they start, that optimism has been replaced with realism. His tone's changed. still respectful, still polished, but measured. That early fire is dulled by the grind to try and make progress in a system stacked against him. Preseason games don't count, but they can set the tone. And the tone this season? It's disappointment. It's wasted reps. It's players giving everything only to be let down by leadership that can't seem to get out of its own way. The deeper issue is that this all could have been prevented. The signs were there early. The line struggled in camp. Communication broke down during joint practices. And rather than taking aggressive steps, the staff played it safe. They gambled on cohesion magically appearing, and lost. There's still time to fix some of it. Line adjustments, coaching changes, a new voice in the room. But the longer they wait, the more irreversible the damage becomes. Because these aren't just losses. They're lessons, and the team is learning the wrong ones. A season like this doesn't just bruise the record. It bruises the culture. Players start adapting to dysfunction instead of demanding better. And once that mindset takes root, it becomes a habit of accepting less, of surviving, not. This is why Stefanski's future is in question. It's not about one decision or one game. It's about a pattern of overlooking obvious issues, a pattern of underreacting, a pattern of letting problems become narratives. If leadership won't lead, the locker room fractures. If coaching can't adjust, talent deteriorates. And if the front office won't act, the entire identity of the team dissolves. That's where the Browns are right now, at a crossroads between protecting their players or protecting their pride. Judkins and Sanders are the future. But if this coaching staff can't keep them upright, can't get them the reps they need, can't provide a functioning system around them, then what exactly are they building? Because from the outside, it looks like they're just burning through talent. When Sanders speaks now, he chooses his words carefully. He knows the media is waiting for him to crack, but he doesn't give them the satisfaction. He's too smart. Still, the message is in the pauses, the glances, the subtle frustration underneath. He doesn't have to say it out loud for people to hear it. This isn't what he signed up for. He's not angry. He's disappointed. And that's worse, because once a player loses belief, it's nearly impossible to get it back, especially when the people in charge still don't seem to grasp what's at stake. Every week that goes by without change, without urgency, without accountability, is another week of damage done, not just to the season, to the team, to the future. The Browns still have time to fix it, but only if they stop pretending this is normal. You can trace this crisis back to more than just bad play. It's bad decisions stacked on top of each other. From refusing to overhaul the offensive line, to sticking with schemes that clearly aren't working, the coaching staff has stayed locked into a system that's not only failing, but actively making things worse. By the time they react, the games are already gone. By the time they admit there's an issue, the damage is already showing up in player stats, health, and tape. That kind of delay doesn't just cost wins. It breeds resentment. Players can accept mistakes. What they can't accept is inaction. There's no excuse left for what's happening up front. The Browns are fielding one of the most visibly dysfunctional lines in the league, and it's not a matter of effort or injuries. It's an organizational refusal to accept reality until it's too late. For someone like Judkins, that's a hard pill to swallow. You train all offseason. You fight for every carry. You take the hits, break the tackles, and still show up because that's what pros do. But when nothing changes, when every game feels like deja vu in the worst way, it starts to wear you down. He's not going public with complaints. He doesn't need to. His production tells the story. His tone in interviews speaks volumes. He's saying what needs to be said, just without burning bridges. That's not weakness. That's discipline. But that doesn't mean the frustration isn't there. What's frustrating is that everyone knows he's talented. Everyone knows what he can do in the open field, but no one's getting him there. Instead, he's being asked to create miracles behind a line that can't even hold for half a second. It's not just unfair, it's that responsibility circles back to Stefanski, who continues to defend the process while ignoring the results. He talks about trusting the plan, trusting the guys up front, trusting the system. But how much trust can you ask for when the plan is broken? Players aren't stupid. They see who's being held accountable and who isn't. They know when they're being fed recycled coach speak instead of actual solutions. And at a certain point, belief gives way to doubt. Then doubt turns into disconnection. That's how you lose a locker room. Stefanski has done some good things in Cleveland. But right now, none of that matters if he can't keep his young core protected. Every week this continues is another week where his credibility slips and the player's confidence erodes. The question now isn't just whether he can fix it, it's whether he waited too long. You can feel that tension in the way Sanders talks about the offense. There's no open criticism, but the coded language is there. Phrases like "we're figuring things out" or "it's a process" are shields. He's trying to stay respectful, but it's clear he's tired. Tired of running for his life. Tired of checking down before a route can even develop. Tired of taking hits that don't need to happen. He came into this season ready to prove himself, and instead, he's stuck in a loop of improvisation and recovery. This isn't the career arc anyone wanted for him. It's not about stats. It's about habits. When you play under stress long enough, it changes your instincts. It rewires your internal clock. And right now, Sanders is being trained by chaos instead of coached by... This team doesn't need a miracle. It needs basics. Blocking, discipline, adjustments, accountability. These are not advanced concepts. They're the minimum requirement to compete at this level. And the fact that they're still missing this far into the season is telling. What's worse is that the front office is watching this unfold and still hasn't hit the panic button. You got a quarterback getting hit constantly and a running back buried under blown assignments. And they're treating it like growing pains. It's not growing pains. It's rot. Waiting until the end of the season to evaluate isn't leadership. It's deflection. The damage is happening now. And unless someone has the guts to make a real change, this is going to become the standard instead of the outlier. Stefanski's job isn't to make excuses for players. It's to put them in position to succeed. That means if something's broken, you fix it. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. That urgency is what separates leaders from placeholders. But every press conference feels the same. The same vague answers. The same unwillingness to name names or outline clear changes. The same insistence that the process is sound, even when everyone can see the results aren't. That kind of tone sets the pace for a whole organization. And right now, the pace is unacceptable. The Browns don't need another quote. They need action. Something real. Something that shows the players and fans that the people in charge are awake and paying attention. Because right now, the silence is saying everything. What stings the most is looking back to preseason, when Sanders was locked in, smiling, hyped up with teammates on the sideline. He believed in the plan. He trusted the direction. That trust is what makes all of this hit harder. The version of Sanders we're seeing now is different. Still composed. Still professional. But changed. The sideline energy is quieter. The post-game interviews are more cautious. And that spark? It's not gone, but it's dimmer. He didn't lose it because of pressure. He lost it because of neglect. And unless someone steps up to protect players like him and Judkins, that energy won't come back. Not here. Not in this system. Not under this kind of leadership. So if you've made it this far, you already know what time it is. Hit that like if you're tired of seeing young talent wasted. Share this with someone who still thinks this is just about one bad game. Drop a comment if you're ready to see real accountability. And if you want more truth about what's going on in Cleveland, go ahead and subscribe. We're not sugarcoating anything here.